So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Who back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Wednesday, September 1st. Hopefully everybody's having a day so far and a good rest of their day. Yesterday, it is in fact Wednesday, September 1st here today. The first day of September. We're coming off of another night of baseball last night. The New York Yankees take another tough loss. Just wasn't our night again. We open up to an early lead, then we kind of get the comeback a little bit, and then we weren't able to finish it out. So definitely a little bit of definitely a tough way to lose for the New York Yankees, and it's 4 straight now. So we got to find a way to turn the page. We got to find a way to turn things around and get going here. As we all know that we won 13 straight, and now we're kind of hit of a little bit of a skid where we've lost 4 straight. So you don't want 13 straight games to then turn into 9 straight losses. You want to win a game, snap the losing streak, head home, have a nice, trip home, nice day off tomorrow where you don't have to think about anything, and then you get ready to go play Baltimore, and that's that should be an easy 3 wins. So that's how I feel like the New York Yankees thought process should be. So in terms of, am I worried? I'm not. Because if you look at the schedule, if you look at what's upcoming for the New York Yankees, it's very easy schedule. We still have the wild card fully locked up. It's not time to concern. It's not time to be negative. It's not time to, do this and that. We've lost 4 straight. We've hit a little bit of a rough patch. We go out there today. Today's a pretty big game. If we lose today, you get swept by the Angels. It does stink. But you got to just realize that we have Baltimore on the other side of this. And then after Baltimore, we have teams like the Texas Rangers. And, we have some other really bad teams coming up. If you look at our schedule here, it goes as follows. It's Baltimore, then the Blue Jays, then the Mets, then the Twins, then the Orioles, then the Indians, the Rangers. Those are all very winnable games. Look at it. Orioles for 3. Blue Jays is tough, but they're beatable. They're not an impossible team to beat. Then you have the Mets, not an impossible team to beat either. We all know how the Mets have been struggling. Then you have the Twins, that makeup game. We all know that the Twins aren't good. Then the Orioles again. Then the Indians, the Rangers. Some really easy matchups coming up. So I don't think it's time to be concerned just yet. Now, sure, am I happy that we're on 4-game losing streak? No. Were these 4 games that we could have won? Definitely. We were just on a 13-game win streak. We looked remote. We looked pretty much unstoppable, and now we've kind of come back to reality a little bit. So just got to find a way to win today. We get the job done today. Boom, start a new win streak, and then you look at the upcoming schedule, and you don't want to lick your chops too much because we all know that you could get caught looking ahead. You could get caught taking a team too lightly, and you could lose. But let's be honest here. If the Yankees just do their jobs against these upcoming teams, we should be okay. So I'm not overly concerned about the Yankees. They play today against the Angels, 7 Eastern time, so no West Coast times here. 7 Eastern against the Angels tonight. Cole's on the mound as well, so you got to feel confident about that. Your ace is on the mound. You got to feel confident. You got to feel. Let's hope that the Yankees can get the win today. Mets, by the way, won both games yesterday. It looked like the Mets were done in the first game. Down 5-1 in the bottom of the 9th, and they found a way to come back and win. And in the second game, they won as well. As I kind of mentioned yesterday, I'm not really surprised. It's the Marlins. They're not a good team. The Mets are going to beat the Marlins. It's when they face up against the other good teams that they look lost. And their turn will come when they face up against better teams once again. So Mets get 2 good wins they play again today. Yankees also finish out a 3-game set today. Against the Angels, we try to avoid the sweep. That's all. Today we try to avoid the sweep. We try to salvage the final game of the 3-game set. And then we'll head home, back to New York, have a day off tomorrow, and then get ready for the 3-game set over the weekend against the Orioles. So Yankees and Mets both today. A lot of baseball. And even though it's September, still a lot of baseball and a lot of meaningful baseball to play, especially for both New York baseball teams. The Mets are still playing. As much as I don't think the Mets are going to win and make the playoffs, they're still not out of it. They're not eliminated. Neither are the Yankees. The Yankees definitely aren't eliminated. The Yankees are actually trying to go for the division. Although the division seems a little bit more out of reach now, but still, we got to lock up the wild card. So we'll see how everything plays out. But with that being said, let's get to the topics for today's podcast. Big football day. There's 2 NBA stories I want to also get to. But I want to talk about this first, given that the NFL season's just around the corner. And as we all know yesterday, all 32 NFL teams had to cut their roster to 53 men by 4 Eastern. So I wanted to get to that, talk about the Jets and the Giants 53-man rosters. But let's get to the first topic. The Jets trade Chris Herndon to the Vikings. So, yes, you've heard that right. The New York Jets have traded tight end Chris Herndon to the Vikings after the Vikings got some really bad news. Irv Smith Jr. undergoes knee surgery. So their tight end that I was high on this season. I think I talked about it with fantasy football. I was high on him this year. I thought he was going to have a really solid year. He was a good option in fantasy. He was a good overall option overall. He looked like he was going to have a really promising year now that Kyle Rudolph was gone and he was officially really taking over that number 1. Well, he goes down. Chris Herndon fills in. So the New York Jets trade Herndon, and I believe a 6th-round pick, and the Jets get a 4th-round pick in return, which, to be honest, I think is actually a decent value considering we just traded a guy that has really struggled these past 2 seasons. Herndon showed a lot of promise in his rookie year in 2018. Did not do anything in 2019. Had some PED issues. Had some injuries. Played all but one. He missed all but 1 game in 2019. And last season he played all 16, but he was not good. He did not put up the production that we expected nor wanted him to do. So this season we got rid of him. We trade him. I'll get to that. Talk about it. Then I want to get to the Jets and Giants 53-man rosters. I'll go through both 53-man rosters. I'm not going to sit here and dissect each player. That would take me an hour to do because I could talk about each player, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to talk about each position group, do a quick thing on it, get to the Giants 53-man roster, Jets 53-man roster, get to their roster cuts, both of their roster cuts. It might seem like I'm going to talk about a lot, but I already kind of know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to sit here and dissect each player. Like Daniel Jones, the starter, this is what we should expect. And then Mike Glennon, or like the Jets, we go with, or if we were dissecting the Chiefs, we're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes, and we're not going to do that. Like the Jets, I'm not going to dissect Zach Wilson and dissect Mike White, the 2 quarterbacks. I'm going to tell you about the quarterbacks. I'm going to talk about the receivers, talk about all the positions, give you the 53-man roster. These are the 53 guys that will be playing, or these are the 53 guys that will be at the game or at the games this year. Now, sure, throughout a year, injuries happen, trades, signings, all that stuff. So your 53-man roster usually at the beginning of the season is a whole lot different than the end of the season. That's something I always like to do. Like even the Yankees, I always, at the end of the year, you look at let's say the team made the postseason. That final postseason game, you look at that lineup. Okay, you look at it. Then I always like to look at the opening day lineup. You could go back and look at the lineup. And I look at it, I compare the two. What the Yankees had the opening day lineup and their last game of the season, their lineup. And it's wild, the difference. Like the Yankees on their opening day lineup, people had Jay Bruce in it. Yeah. Just put that. I remember the 2019 season I did it. In the 2019 season, the first game had all these guys, and there was only like a couple guys in the final game of the season in the lineup that they had an opening day. That's how sports are. So we'll get to the 53-man rosters. Then we'll finish off with the New York sports update and cap it all off. Yankees and Mets today. Some college football on tomorrow. Yes, this is week 1 of the college football season. It all starts up tomorrow, Thursday. There's a lot of good college football games. I believe Friday, there's got to be some games on Friday. And then Saturday's the really big day because you got all the big schools. You got Miami, Alabama. I don't feel good about that game, but I'm optimistic that, Miami might be able to come out. I'll get to Miami probably on Friday. I might get to a preview, depending on, all the other news going around. But it's a big weekend coming up in college football. This is really a big weekend. So, with all that being said, a lot to get to today and a lot to get to throughout the week with college football and NFL and MLB. A lot of sports to get to. But with all that being said, this is BSN Podcast, and let's get right into it. So Vikings require Jets tight end Chris Herndon after Irv Smith Jr. undergoes knee surgery per report. Yes, you have heard that right. The New York Jets have traded Chris Herndon and a 6th-round pick to the Minnesota Vikings for, it looks like, a 4th-round pick in return, as the New York Jets have officially traded Chris Herndon. So we all know yesterday, you had all the roster cuts. Each team had to have their teams down by 53-man rosters by 4 Eastern yesterday, and every team now, they got their 53-man rosters set. Those are the 53 guys that are going to be going out there every week and trying to help their team, trying to do whatever they can to help the team win. Now, sure, not all 53 guys are going to contribute. There's going to be some guys that won't see many snaps, but for the most part, about 22 guys will be big part. Defense, offense, and special teams. 11 guys on the field. Add that together, that's about 22 of the 53. That will be a big part. Plus, there's a couple other specialists like the kicker and all that stuff and the punter. But a lot of times, there's a lot of times like on kickoffs, the guys who play defense are also on kickoff. It's kind of special teams and defense are kind of the same thing. But either way, their rosters have been cut down. So yesterday we saw some big news actually yesterday. And I was expecting it to be maybe a little bit more bigger yesterday, only because it always seems like every year you get a surprising cut. Every year you do. Yesterday, I think we were all shocked by the news of Cam Newton getting released. I think many were shocked. Jet fans were, I think, surprised that the Jets not traded Herndon, but are deciding to go with Trayvon Wesco and Tyler Kroft at their tight end position. Getting rid of Herndon, do that all you want, but at the same time, now you cut Kenny Yeboah, you cut Ryan Griffin, you cut Daniel Brown. You cut 3 tight ends, you traded another tight end, and now you're left with Trayvon Wesco and Tyler Kroft. Like, there's got to be another move that can be made. And we all know how Chris Herndon kind of goes. Let's really get into Chris Herndon now. We all know how Chris Herndon's kind of time with the New York Jets went. Right? He was, when the Jets actually got Chris Herndon in the draft, he was a guy who in the 2018 draft, he was a guy who had upside, but it was not really like anything like the Jets expected this guy to be an all-time great. And I think when we drafted him, the Jets haven't had a consistent tight end in years. When we drafted, Chris Herndon, he had a really good, solid rookie year. And that was really the big thing with Herndon, was flashes with Chris Herndon. He showed flashes of being this really good player, and he showed moments of, oh my gosh, can this guy even do anything? And he showed a lot of those moments last year in 2020 with the New York Jets where, he missed all but one game in 2019. He played every game last year, but he was terrible. He was awful. He was dropping balls. He fumbled a couple times. He didn't have a good year. And, I think that's why the Jets pulled the trigger. And every year leading up to this, it's like the New York Jets, had hope for him, but he never really exceeded it. But in 2019, he had a really solid year. And, we draft him, goes through training camp, impressed that training camp, did really well. And, with a rookie quarterback in Darnold that year, that was the 2018 draft. Yeah, I'll tell you what, the 2018 draft is completely blown up right in our face. That draft has not been successful. There's only 2 guys in that draft that remain with the team, I believe. What is it? I believe it's Florenzo Fatukasi and somebody else. Other than that, everyone else is gone. Done. That 2018 draft class is done. But either way, we draft him in 2019, we bring him in, and we, as Jet fans, we have not had a consistent tight end in such a long time. And that can be said about a couple other NFL teams, but there are, if you get a good tight end, you get a good tight end. I mean, look at the Patriots. For all those years, they had Gronk as their tight end. I mean, they had a solid tight end for a full pretty much 2 decades. Now the Patriots seemed like they had solid everything when they were there because they were winning all the time. But either way, they had a solid tight end. Look at Kansas City; they had Travis Kelce. You even look at Philadelphia with Zach Ertz, and now they got Dallas Goedert. And you even look at teams like the Washington with Logan Thomas and And, guys like that. And, you even look, San Francisco with George Kittle and Raiders with Darren Waller. There are a lot of really good tight ends out there. But the Jets have never had that kind of consistent tight end in a really long time. We had Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Ryan Griffin, Daniel Brown, Chris Herndon. We've had so many guys come in and out of here that just never worked out. And, when we got Chris Herndon in 2019, and he had a really promising rookie year. I mean, Chris Herndon in 2019 had a really good year. There was hope with Chris Herndon in 2018, and he had a really solid season. He looked good. Him and Darnold really started to play well together. And going into the 2019 season, the hype and anticipation was through the roof with him. And then he had issues. He had some PED stuff. And then he had I believe he had an injury. And he missed all but one game in 2019. And in that one game, it's not like he made a big difference in that one game. I believe the one game he played was against the New York Giants. It was the Jet-Giant game. The Jets were wearing their blackout unis, and I remember Chris Herndon came back, and we were all like, oh, maybe he'll help us win a couple games. And he did not. He missed all but one game. And then you go into last year, and you're like, okay, fresh start for him. Like, he's played 17 games in his first 2 years of his NFL career. It's a fresh start. Let's see what he can do. And last year, he didn't have a good year. So, he showed a lot of potential in 2018. Like, serious potential. Had a really good year. He turned into Darnold's one of his top, targets. Then 2019 hit. Missed every game except one. And then last season played all 16, but man, was he bad. So, I feel like with Herndon, I know this could be a little risky, but this is a risky trade for both sides. I believe that it's kind of a win for both sides, especially a win for the Vikings. So the Vikings now get a tight end. Losing Irv Smith Jr. is definitely a big-time loss. But they now get a tight end. Now, is Chris Herndon going to put up what we think Irv Smith Jr. was? I wouldn't say so. But either way, they get another tight end here. But I feel like this trade does have a little high. This trade for the Vikings has a high risk, high reward. Because your risk it's not really a high. It's actually a lower risk, high reward in a way. Because you're not giving up much. You're giving up a 4th-round pick, which I actually thought was a decent amount for getting a guy that hasn't really done anything in his career other than his rookie year. And, you are getting a guy with upside. He does have potential. It's just a matter of if he can exceed that. And we saw it in 2018. We didn't see it in 2019. We didn't see it in 2020. And in all fairness, he played one game in 2019. So you can kind of take that season, throw it out the window. When talking about Chris Herndon, what did you see in 2018 and what did you see in 2020? And what I saw in 2018 was a really promising tight end, a guy that had a lot of upside, a lot of potential, showed a lot of really, really nice plays. And what I saw in 2020 was a guy that did not look like he wanted to be out there, a guy that looked lost, a guy that couldn't catch, a guy that was not good with the football, and overall a guy that you couldn't trust throwing to. So which Chris Herndon are the Vikings going to get? Are they going to get the 2018 Chris Herndon, where he showed a lot of potential, had a really good year, turned into one of Darnold's favorite options? Or are you going to get the 2020 Chris Herndon, where you can't trust throwing to him, he fumbles a lot, drops a lot of passes, and you just can't trust him? That's why it's kind of a little bit of a higher risk, because if you get the 2020 Chris Herndon, well, boy, you're in for a long year this year. But if you get anywhere close to the 2018 Chris Herndon, you're going to have a solid season. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here at all and say that, I love this move or not. This move saves some cap room for the Jets as well, and we get a draft pick. We get a 4th-round pick. We gave up, I believe it was a 6th. The Vikings get what they need, and the Jets we get a draft pick. And we all know that Joe Douglas is like a wizard in the NFL draft. So I look at this move as there's still another move to be made. Because you can't sit here and tell me, and maybe they do, and maybe Tyler Kroft goes out and has a great year maybe he turns into the tight end that he was in Cincinnati, where he actually had a couple really nice seasons in Cincinnati. But you can't sit here and tell me you're going to go with Trayvon Wesco, who's actually been more of our fullback, and Tyler Kroft at tight end. to open up week 1. There's got to be another move to be made, whether that's picking someone up, whether that's maybe calling one of your guys up from the practice squad, whether that's trading for Zach Ertz, which I would love for that to happen. Whatever it is, there's got to be another move to be made. And the Jets tight ends we knew have been weak, and the fact that we've traded Chris Herndon now and put the other 3 in the practice squad, there's got to be another move coming. But the big thing with Herndon was, it wasn't that he wasn't good enough, it was just the fact that he had one really good season, and he played one game in 2019, and played all 16 last year, but wasn't good. And frankly, the Jets felt that he was not a need, and he was not a guy that they needed to be out there every Sunday. So, and like I said, Vikings get a tight end. Now, Chris Herndon, as I mentioned earlier, is not going to probably do what Irv Smith would have done, but it's a whole lot better than rolling out a no-name or someone like that. So the Jets give up Herndon. Probably, I would assume, another move to be made at the tight end position. And now they get some draft picks. And, hey, the Vikings get a new tight end. So a little bit of a win-win. But it's a small trade nonetheless. But, you know, I think for the Jets, it was kind of the mindset of, can we really throw Herndon out there for another year and have him have another bad season? Because, you know, you sometimes have that saying of good outweighs the bad. Well, with Herndon's career, it's been the bads outweighed the good. He had one good year in 2018. Showed a lot of promise. And 2019 and 2020 have been awful. So, you know, maybe change his scenery. Maybe he turns it around in Minnesota. Because what I saw in 2019 was a guy that looked like he could be with the New York Jets for a long time and be really good. And what I saw in 2019, 2020 was a guy that I'm not even sure how he got on the roster. That's how much of a drastic change it was. It really is. And, you know, maybe it was the system. Maybe, I don't know what it was. But what we saw in 2018 is nowhere close to what we're seeing now. All right, so let's read this quick article here. So Vikings acquired Jets tight end Chris Herndon after Irv Smith Jr. undergoes knee surgery per report. So the Vikings are expected to be without potential breakout starter Irv Smith Jr. when they open the 2021 season, thanks to the third-year tight end undergoing surgery for a meniscus injury. On Tuesday, ahead of the NFL's deadline for 53-man roster cuts, Minnesota added an emergency fill-in. As NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reported, the Vikings have acquired Chris Herndon from the Jets, adding the former fourth-rounder as a potential replacement starter for Week 1. So, the Jets drafted Herndon in the 4th round. I would say his stock got worse, and we get a 4th-rounder. So, you actually look at this trade, and this is actually a solid trade for the Jets, because you get, for a guy that I would think being drafted, if you were to redraft that 2018 draft class, the Jets probably don't draft Chris Herndon in the 4th round. But we're getting a 4th rounder in return. And Chris Herndon, I'll tell you what, he has not played like a 4th rounder. He hasn't. I don't know what yours. I don't really. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he's played like a 6th rounder, but he has not lived up to the ability that he showed in 2018. Herndon, 25, arrives in Minnesota along with a 2022 6th round pick in exchange for a 2022 4th rounder. The Miami product flashed as a rookie with the Jets back in 2018, posting 39 catches for 502 yards and 4 touchdowns. But injuries and a suspension limited him to just one game the following year, and he had an underwhelming production during the New York's 2020 campaign before competing with Tyler Kroft this summer for the Jets' starting tight end job. Still, with Vikings coach Mike Zimmer openly calling his team tight end and depth not very good, and Smith set to be sidelined anywhere from several weeks to several months, Herndon has a feasible path to playing time in Minnesota. After cutting ties with longtime starter Kyle Rudolph this offseason, the Vikings were counting on Smith emerging as one of Kirk Cousins' top pass targets this year. Tyler Conklin, one of the club's top reserves, is recovering from a hamstring injury that sidelined him since earlier this month. So, So that's the quick article. And like I said, you look at it. I mean, you look at his numbers here. I'll pull up the numbers now. You just look at the numbers from 2018. Like, I can't stress enough how good of a rookie year he had. Like, he had such a good rookie season. And everything just fell off from there. 2018 stats: 16 games played, 39 catches, 56 targets, 502 yards, 12.9 was average, 4 touchdowns, 25 first downs. He didn't fumble. He fumbled only once. He didn't have many real drops. And if you look at last season, 16 games, 31 catches, 45 targets, 287 yards, 9.3 was average, touchdowns, 3. He had 3 touchdowns. So his receptions were down, targets were down, yards were down, average per catch was down, touchdowns were down, long was down, first downs were down, fumbles were up. Just goes to show you how bad he was last season. I mean, the production he put up in 2018 to what he did last year is really bad. And hey, if you're a Viking fan today, he is 25 years old, so he's still got a lot of game left. I mean, he's still got a lot of time left. He's 25. It's not like he's 32 and he's not been good for a long time. He's still 25. He's entering his 4th year in the league. It's not like you're getting a guy that's been in the league for 13 seasons is doing nothing. So there's still, I guess, time to grow. But if 2019 and 2020 showed us anything, then the Chris Herndon is going to be in for a long one the rest of his career. And maybe the Vikings fix him. Maybe they do. But as I mentioned, this is a logical thing for the Jets and Chris Herndon, or the Jets and the Vikings. Because let's look here. The Vikings need a tight end now. You could go with your depth, but obviously Mike Zimmer doesn't believe in that. So you go out and sign a tight end, and the Jets get a draft pick. I do believe deep down inside that you've got to make another move. Maybe the Jets go out and say, hey, Tyler Kroft's our tight end. Maybe they do. Maybe what they saw now. He did have a good preseason game against Green Bay. Not that means everything, but maybe they say we saw enough out of Tyler Kroft that he can be the starter. But I just feel like, okay, Tyler Kroft's the starter. Cool. Let him be the starter. If that's your decision, there's got to be another move anyway to provide depth. Because you can't have Tyler Kroft as the only tight end on the roster. Trayvon Wesco is definitely a tight end, but he's been our fullback. So if you put Trayvon Wesco at tight end, then who's your fullback? Now, not that fullbacks really do anything much anymore in our game today, but still, close down in distances, where you need blocking. If where's he? That's just the only, the Jets tight end depth, it's just so weird. I not that I'm mad, I'm just very confused at what the Jets are trying to do here. Trade Chris Herndon. Okay, great, trade him. He stinks. He's awful. I can't tell you how many times last year he had an opportunity to make a big play and he messed up. Millions of times. Every time Darnold would throw the ball to Chris Herndon, you had to hold your breath that he didn't fumble it. I mean, Chris Herndon and Evan Ingram combined probably led the league in drops combined between 2 tight ends. I mean, it was so bad. Chris Herndon and Evan Ingram last season were so terrible to watch. So trade Chris Herndon all you want. I don't care. But what I am a little concerned about is our tight end depth. What do you do now? Now, we still do have a lot of guys in the on the practice squad, but so if there's a tight end that goes down, who are you going to call up? Daniel Brown? Do you trust him? I don't know. I just think there's some unfinished business with the Jets in terms of finalizing this roster. Not saying that we're going to go out and, make any more major moves, but maybe trade for someone, maybe, waiver claims, put in a claim for someone. I don't know. I just, unless if I'm missing something. Now, sure, they could call a guy up from the practice squad and do all that stuff. Maybe I'm missing something, but maybe I am missing something. Maybe I am. You can't tell me they're just going to roll Tyler Kroft and Trayvon Wesco out there week 1. Put Tyler Kroft out there, I don't mind. But who's behind Tyler Kroft? Trayvon Wesco? Really? The guy hasn't really played tight end much. He's been a fullback. Just very interesting. But the Jets do go out and trade Chris Herndon. As I've talked many times, showed promise in 2018, 2019, did nothing. 2020, did absolutely nothing. So I look at this as, a move where I say this. This is a move for the New York Jets where you get a draft pick, you get a 4th rounder in return. The Vikings get a tight end to fill in, at least the replacement for right now. Vikings got a guy that maybe they can try to turn into what he was in 2018. Maybe they could, get more out of him. And now the Jets start fresh at their tight end position, and we'll see who's going to be the starting tight end come week 1. It looks like right now it's going to be Tyler Kroft, but there might be another move in the making. So we will see. All right, so coming up next here, I wanted to get into the 53-man rosters for both the Jets and the Giants. I want to get into just, both the rosters with the Jets and the Giants and, which players made it, which the cuts and all that stuff. Some surprising stuff, some not surprising stuff with the 53-man rosters. As we all know, yesterday they got finalized. So coming up next here, we'll get to the Jets and Giants 53-man rosters. Alright, so now we're going to look at both the Jets and the Giants 53-man rosters. As we all know, yesterday at 4 Eastern, the New York Jets and the New York Giants had to make their roster cuts, along with every other team in the NFL all had to make their roster cuts yesterday. And as I talked a little bit about earlier, there wasn't any major surprises other than Cam Newton getting released. There wasn't, every year when you have roster cuts, there's usually always one big surprise. There's always one major surprise of a player getting cut. And that usually happens a lot. Every year where a player that you probably did not expect to get cut got cut. And that's kind of what happened yesterday with Cam Newton and the Patriots, where you weren't expecting him to get cut. There was a possibility he was going to start, and, well, they released him anyway. Mac Jones is going to start. So that was a surprise. But I wouldn't say the New York Jets and the New York Giants had any major surprises. I would say they kind of did what they were expecting. I will tell you I am a little surprised with maybe some of the cuts the Jets made at tight end. That's the only thing. But other than that, I think we all expected the guys that got cut, and the guys who were going to make the roster made the roster. It's kind of like that. There was no major, I know some people were saying, could Denzel Mims get released? No, that did not happen. Could Josh Adams maybe make the roster, and could LaMichael Pirine get cut? No, that did not happen. So there was definitely maybe some rumors and some possibilities and brainstorming, but all in all, the New York Jets made the cuts that I think we expected them to make, and they kept the guys that we expected them to keep. So I'm going to go through the Jets 53-man and the Giants 53-man and kind of give you overall the thoughts on it. So let's get to the Jets here. So the New York Jets, this is the official roster of the guys: offense, defense, secondary, offensive line, defensive line, secondary, receivers, tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks, even special teams and all that stuff. So this is everybody. All right, so the quarterbacks. The New York Jets, as we all know, retain Zach Wilson. Shocker. Zach Wilson's roster spot is definitely safe. Shocker. So they kept Zach Wilson, and they kept Mike White. So Zach Wilson will be the starter. Mike White will be the backup. And they cut Josh Johnson and James Morgan. As for the running backs, they kept 5 running backs and cut 1. So they had 6 running backs total in training camp. They cut 1 and kept 5. The 5 running backs they retained are Michael Carter, Tevin Coleman, LaMichael Pirine, Ty Johnson, and Trayvon Wesco. And they cut Josh Adams. So Josh Adams is gone and Trayvon Wesco is in. That's a little surprising. I knew Josh Adams was going to get cut, but I didn't expect Trayvon Wesco to really go under running back. I would have expected him to go more into the receiver fullback area. Or tight end fullback, rather. As for receivers, they cut 3 and kept 7. So there was 10 of them at camp. They cut 3 of them, kept 7. These were the 7 they retained. These are all pretty obvious. Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder, Keelan Cole, Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios, and Jeff Smith. And the 3 that they cut were Lawrence Cager, DJ Montgomery, and Vincent Smith. So Jeff Smith just squeaks in to the 7 receivers there. He had a really good training camp, impressed, and he's on the roster. So he beat out Lawrence Cager, DJ Montgomery, and Vincent Smith. And Jeff Smith has had some flashes. He had a really good training camp. He kind of came in on the roster bubble. He had a really good training camp, and now he's earned his spot. So Jeff Smith's in there. I know a lot of people thought that some other guys would be. That was really the only one. I think we all knew Davis, Mims, Crowder, Cole, Moore, and Berrios were all going to be in there. It was that final receiver that raised some questions. Was it going to be Cager? Was Vincent Smith going to be in there? Was it going to be Jeff Smith? Come to find out, Jeff Smith is in the lineup. All right, as for tight ends, they kept really one tight end, and they cut 3. So they kept Tyler Kroft and Chris Herndon. Then they traded Chris Herndon. So they kept Tyler Kroft and Chris Herndon, and then they traded Chris Herndon to the Vikings, as we all know. I just talked about that. And they cut Kenny Yeboah, Daniel Brown, and Ryan Griffin. Now, Ryan Griffin's on IR. Daniel Brown doesn't do much. Kenny Yeboah is healthy and all that, but we decided to cut him anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if tight end's a work in progress this year, where you see guys going up and down, in and out. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But you have one tight end technically right now, and that's Tyler Kroft, as Chris Herndon got traded. So maybe that does create room for somebody else to come up, but we'll see what the Jets do decide to do. As for the offensive line, we kept 9 offensive linemen and cut, looks like we cut 5 offensive linemen and kept 9. So these are the 9 ones that will be on the roster. Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker, Connor McGovern, Greg Van Roen, George Font, Morgan Moses, Dan Feeney, Chuma Edoga, and Connor McDermott. And we cut Grant Hermans, David Moore, Isaiah Williams, Corey Levine, and Jimmy Murray. And injured reserve is Cameron Clark, Parker Ferguson, and Teton Saltz. So those guys are on IR anyway, so they were not even going to be on the roster. I was a little surprised to see Chuma Edoga make it. This guy's had a lot of chances with the Jets and hasn't done well. I thought for sure that Jimmy Murray might squeak in over Chuma Edoga, but obviously the Jets see something in Edoga to put him on the roster, so he's there with the other. Obviously, as we all know, Becton, McGovern, Font, Moses, Tucker, and, all those guys, Elijah Vera Tucker, all those guys have secure roster spots. Those are our core. It was the backups that were some question marks with the offense line, but we got those answers. Then for the defense line, we kept 9 and cut, looks like 5 as well. So these are these are the guys we retained. Foley Fatukasi, John Franklin Myers, Bryce Huff, Nathan Shepard, Quinn Williams, Jabari Zuniga, Sheldon Rankins, Jonathan Marshall, and Shaq Lawson. As we all know, Shaq Lawson, we just traded for him a couple days ago. And we cut Hammaker, Rashid, Tanzel Smart, Jeremiah Valoga, and Ronald Blair, which I was a little surprised to see that because Ronald Blair played with Saleh in San Francisco. I thought they might have him play a little bit more, but he obviously got cut, didn't see enough. And injured reserve, so PUP list, physically unable to perform, participate, practice, whatever you want to say, is Kyle Phillips, and injured reserve is Carl Lawson. We all know Carl Lawson is done for the year with a torn Achilles. I was a little surprised to see Jabari Zuniga. This was a guy that was a rookie last season, didn't do much when he was out there. He was injured, came into camp. He's injury prone. I was a little surprised to see him make the roster. And Nathan Shepard, there was a lot of people saying that Nathan Shepard's got like 9 lives. This is a guy who had a good year his rookie year and has been asked since, but he's continued to just go out there and makes the team. So they obviously saw enough. He'll be there on the defensive line. As for the linebackers, and reserve non-football injury list is Vinny Curry as well. He'll be done for the year as well. So linebackers, we kept 5, and we actually cut 5 as well. So these are the 5 we kept. We retained Blake Cashman, Jared Davis, C.J. Mosley, Hamza Najruddin, and Jamian Sherwood. The 2 rookies there at the bottom of that list with Hamza Najruddin and Jamian Sherwood. And we cut Camilo Eifler, Delshawn Phillips, Noah Dawkins, and Aaron Adue. So the linebackers, I think, are obvious. I think we all knew it. Some people said Blake Cashman maybe. I'm not surprised that they kept Blake Cashman. Guy has been injury prone, but you got to hope that this season, same thing with Mosley, guys can stay healthy. As for cornerbacks, we kept 8, and we only cut 1 cornerback, which is actually kind of surprising. But these are our 8 cornerbacks. We retained Bless Austin, Michael Carter II, not Michael Carter the running back, Michael Carter II. Brandon Echols, Bryce Hall, Justin Hardy, Jason Pinnock, Isaiah Dunn, and Javelin Guidry. So those are the 8 guys we kept, and we cut Lamar Jackson, who was starting last year for us. We cut him. So some rookies taking over his spot. Injury reserve, Zane Lewis, and the PUP list is Saquon Hampton. So all those guys are injured as well. They would not be on the roster. As for safeties, we kept 3 safeties and we cut 5 safeties. Or actually 4, rather. So there was a lot of safeties. I definitely would say there might have been a position battle with Ashton Davis, given that he's been injured. But these are the 3 safeties we kept. Marcus May, LaMarcus Joyner, and Ashton Davis. And we cut Sherrod Neeson, JT Hashel, Elijah Campbell, and Bennett Jackson. So Marcus May, Joyner, and Davis, no surprise there. They're all on the roster. I'm not a big fan of Ashton Davis. I didn't think he was all that good last season. I think he's a little overrated, but he made the roster anyway. He's a depth guy. We'll see what he does. As we all know, Marcus May and LaMarcus Joyner are leading the way there at the safety position. And as for special teams, they didn't cut anyone at special teams. They cut nobody. They kept the 3 guys that they needed. They retained Thomas Hennessy, Brandon Mann, and Matt Amendola, and they did not need to make any cuts. They actually made some cuts earlier in training camp at their kicker position. So these are the 3 guys on special teams: Thomas Hennessy, Braden Mann, and Matt Amendola. Hennessy being the long snapper, Braden Mann the punter, and Matt Amendola, hopefully our new kicker, and hopefully he can show some consistency unlike some of these other kickers. So that's the Jets' 53-man roster. Like I said, no big surprise. I know a lot of people say Josh Johnson should be in there. Not that I don't disagree, but Josh Johnson, from just a logistical standpoint, really only started to practice with the Jets. Let's be honest, Josh Johnson got picked up middle of the training camp. He really only started to practice with the Jets and take some reps with, some of those guys, some of the first team guys, till like the final week of training camp. So to kind of just say, let's just sign you and just throw you into the fire as the backup, I think was a little unrealistic. It will be interesting to see if the Jets claim Morgan or Johnson. One of them maybe both of them could be on the practice squad, but I could see the Jets maybe going with and saying, hey, we're going to keep one of them on the practice squad and completely get rid of the other. So we'll see how that goes. My only question about this, because other than that, there was no other surprises on the roster. Guys who made it. Guys who didn't. My big thing is with the tight end. Are we just going to have is Tyler Kroft going to be the only tight end? Are we just going to hope that Tyler Kroft can do the job? Like, what are we going to do with the tight end? Like, definitely some interesting things there with the tight end. I will tell you that. That's why I feel like there has to be another move that's got to be made. I can't sit here and think that there's not another move that's got to be made. I think there's got to be another move that's got to be made. Not that I don't believe in Tyler Kroft, but just injuries and depth in general. You need another tight end. You do have him on the practice squad, but I would like a guy that can at least get some game action more than often. But either way, those are the guys that we cut, and that's it. So that's the 53-man roster. Zach Wilson, Mike White are the quarterbacks. No surprise there. Running backs, no surprise. Other than I'm kind of surprised they're labeling Trayvon Wesco as a running back. I thought he would be more of a fullback tight end, but they're obviously labeling him as a running back. Wide receivers, no surprise there. Jeff Smith, I guess you could say, is the one surprise, but hey, he had a really good training camp, so he obviously earned his spot. Tight end, surprising that we're only holding one tight end, but I think there's got to be more moves to be made. O-line is the usual. Defense line, the usual. I'm just a little surprised with maybe Ronald Blair being cut because he was in the system in San Francisco, actually did pretty well there. Come here, Jets just didn't have some room for him. Sheldon Rankins, Jonathan Marshall, Shaq Lawson. I guess, with the addition of Shaq Lawson, he was kind of the odd man out. Linebackers, no surprise. Cornerbacks, no surprise. Safeties, no surprise. And obviously special teams, those are the 3 guys that were there. No cuts on special teams. They made those cuts earlier in the training camp. So that's the Jets' 53-man roster. Now let's get to the Giants' 53-man roster. The Giants actually made some moves themselves yesterday. They went out and got an offensive lineman. So the Giants are finally addressing their offensive line needs and not just letting it go like they always seem to do. So this is the Giants' 53-man roster on here. So the Giants' 53-man roster, I wouldn't say had any major surprises other than the fact that they cut Corey Clement, which could show you that Saquon. This isn't a surprise that they cut Corey Clement, but I think we all know Devontae Booker is going to be the number 2 with the running back with the Giants, and Barkley's obviously going to be the number 1. So I think Corey Clement, with him being cut, I think is a huge sign that Barkley's probably going to be ready for week 1. That's probably going to be the deal. But, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, and maybe, they go out and not, maybe they decide that Devontae Booker's the answer and they call someone else up. But we'll see. All right, so these is the Giants' 53-man roster here with each of their positions. So I'll read you the cuts as well. It's a little different with the Giants because it's a little bit of a different site that I'm using here. But I'm going to share you the Giants roster. So, all right, so let's get to quarterbacks here. So the quarterbacks for the New York Giants are Mike Glennon, or Daniel Jones and Mike Glennon. No surprise, Daniel Jones is going to get the starting job. No surprise there. Running backs are Saquon Barkley, Devontae Booker, Gary Brightwell, Colin Gillespie, and Eli Penny. So they cut Corey Clement, which is got to be a huge sign that Barkley's going to be ready for week 1 and Booker's going to be the backup. Because if Barkley wasn't ready for week 1, Booker would be the starter and Clement would be the second string. But now it looks like Barkley's going to be ready, so they don't need Clement. They cut him. So running backs now are Barkley, Booker, Brightwell, Gillespie, and Penny. So it's all signs look like they're pointing towards Barkley playing week 1 against Denver. So that's very big news there for the Giants. As for wide receivers, C.J. Board, Kenny Golladay, Dante Pettis, John Ross, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and Kadarius Toney all made the roster. I don't think there's any surprises there. C.J. Board, Dante Pettis maybe on the roster bubble, but Dante Pettis isn't always going to play receiver too. He kind of can return kicks, but he's more of a depth guy. And with Kadarius Toney as well, he's the rookie. He's not going to get cut. Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. We all know Kenny Galladay is going to be the number 1 receiver there. He's not going to get cut. So no real surprises there at the wide receiver position. As for tight end, Evan Ingram, Kyle Rudolph, and Caden Smith made it. I think the only thing with tight end with the Giants is it's not, is this guy going to get cut or this guy going to get, it's going to be who's going to start. Are they going to start Ingram? Are they going to make a big deal out of this and not are they going to start Ingram? Or are they going to say, hey, no, Ingram, we don't trust you. We're going to start Kyle Rudolph. Or are they going to start Caden Smith? I think there's still a little bit of question of who they're going to start. Because I think if you're a Giant fan, you don't trust Ingram. But maybe the Giants do still trust Ingram. Who knows? But tight end, I think the only question with tight end is who's going to start. If you had to ask me, it's probably going to be Ingram. But that's, after last season, you can't tell me the Giants at least have thought about other options at tight end. That's why they went out and got Kyle Rudolph. And in the offensive line, 2 new faces with Billy Price and Ben Bredesen. Ben Bredesen, Nick Gates, Will Hernandez, Shane Lemieux, Matt Pert, Billy Price, Nate Solder, and Andrew Thomas. That's the offensive line. So no surprises there other than Billy Price and Ben Bredesen. They both got some trades. So I believe Bredesen they got from the Ravens yesterday, and Billy Price they got a couple days ago from the Browns. So those are 2 new faces on the offensive line. And if you're a Giant fan, you got to be happy that they're finally addressing the offensive line. Because Andrew Thomas hasn't really looked that good. You need an offensive line. Especially if you want Daniel Jones to have a good year, you need to get him as much production as they can. So they're definitely getting some more production. All right, so let's get to the defensive line here. The defensive line is Austin Johnson, Raymond Johnson III, Dexter Lawrence, Danny Shelton, and Leonard Williams. Their defensive line is very good. Lawrence, Shelton, and Williams are that core 3 of them. We all know Williams and Lawrence are probably the 2 best defensive linemen on that team. No surprise there. The defensive line, that's that. As for the defensive backs, Sam Beal, James Bradbury, Keon Crossan, Darnay Holmes, Adoree Jackson, Josh Jackson, Julian Love, Xavier McKinney, Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan, and Rondarius Williams. So Logan Ryan, Peppers, McKinney, Bradbury, Adoree Jackson, all those guys are going to do solid. McKinney, I believe, is going to have a bright future. He's got a bright future ahead of him. Adoree Jackson, the new pickup from Tennessee. He's been injured a little bit, but when he's healthy, he's a very solid and underrated cornerback out there. So those are the defensive backs. Linebackers are Cam Brown, Lorenzo Carter, Carter Coughlin, Tay Crowder, Trent Harris, Blake Martinez, Azez Azulare, Reggie Ragland, Ellerson Smith, and Oshunye Zimes. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. No surprise here. Carter Coughlin, by the way, did not have a secure roster spot. Very good preseason, very good training camp. He makes the roster. So Carter Coughlin's in there as well. And Tay Crowder, who was Mr. Irrelevant in 2019, or 2020 rather, makes the roster for the second straight year. A lot of times you see Mr. Irrelevant, they'll make the roster, then they'll get cut. But Tay Crowder obviously has shown enough. He made the roster for a second straight year. And for special teams, it's Riley Dixon and Graham Gano. I don't think there's any surprises there. They're not going to cut Graham Gano or Riley Dixon. They do their jobs. Graham Gano is actually a very good kicker. All right, so these are the 8 veterans that were released. Like I said, Giants, it's a little different the way they organized it. So I'm going to give you the 8 veterans released and the 17 players waived. So these are the 8 players that were released. Veterans. Running back Corey Clement, offensive lineman Chad Slade, Jonathan Harrison, Jonathan Harrison, Kenny Wiggins, linebackers, Ifede Ongigobo, Ryan Anderson, defense lineman Willie Henry, and long snapper Casey Kreider, who is expected to re-sign with the team. So those are all the guys that got released, 8 veterans. So Corey Clement, like I said, the big name there, not because he was supposed to play or whatever, but because if Barkley didn't play week 1, Clement would be the starter or the backup. But now it looks like Barkley's going to go. Booker's going to be the backup. Then no need for a third back. So Clement got cut. And the 17 players that were waived were quarterback Brian Lewerke. I was a little surprised to see David Sills get released. I thought that he might have made the roster. He had a really good training camp and a really good preseason, but definitely a little surprised to see him get cut. But it is what it is. They always felt otherwise. Damian Willis and Matt Cole, tight ends. Nakia Griffin Stewart and Jake Houseman. Running backs, Sandro Platesgummer. Offense lineman, Jackson Barton, Jake Barton, and Brent Heggie. Defense lineman, David Moa, Willie Henry, and Elijah Qualls. Linebacker, Devontae Downs and Nico Lalas. And defensive backs, Madre Harper, Chris Johnson, and Jordan Peters. So those are all the guys that got cut there. And you look at the defensive backs. The defensive backs for the Giants actually very, very talented. Sam Beal, James Bradbury, Keon Carlson, Darren A. Holmes, Adoree Jackson, Josh Jackson, Julian Love, Xavier McKinney, Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan, and Rodarius Williams. Very talented back there. You got 5 guys that could be high-end players. Bradbury, Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney, Jabril Peppers, and Logan Ryan. Ryan, Peppers, McKinney, Jackson, Bradbury. 5 really solid and trustable assets in the secondary for the Giants. Their defense looks very good. Let's look at their defense for a second. Very good, and Patrick Graham's done a great job over there. Dexter Lawrence, Danny Shellen, Leonard Williams, 3 solid guys. Then you go to the secondaries: James Bradbury, Dory Jackson, Xavier McKinney, Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan. 5 solid players. Then you go to the linebackers: Lorenzo Carter, Blake Martinez, Azulare, Ellerson Smith, Reggie Ragland. You even go to Carter Coughlin. If he can give you depth, the Giants have a very solid defense, and it looks even better on paper. Like, these are some real. I mean, this Logan Ryan's not no random name. Jabril Peppers isn't no random name. These are guys that have made a name for themselves throughout the league and continue to do it. I mean, as a Jet fan, I know what Leonard Williams brings to the table. So as a guy who was probably our best defensive lineman there for a little bit before we got rid of him, and he's really seemed to revamp his career as well. And the Giants gave him that big extension. So we'll see what he does. I've always said this about the Giants, especially last season. I'll say it again this year. It's not the defense that's the issue, because it used to be. The Giants used to have issues on the defensive side of the ball, and it used to be the offense that was consistent. Giants a couple years ago had one of the worst defenses in the league. Now it's switched. Their offense is my concern, because there's a good chance Daniel Jones, who's under center this year, there's a good chance he's not even with the team next season if he doesn't have a good year. So there's question marks there. Offensive line, question marks. Receivers, there's not many question marks, but, I mean, if Daniel Jones doesn't have a good year, that's probably slated to meaning that the receivers are going to have great years. We got to see what there's so many question marks and holes on the Giants' offense. Tight end's a question mark. You go through the Giants' offense. Question mark at quarterback. You don't know if Daniel Jones is going to have a good year. This could be it for him. Offensive line, there's so many holes. So many holes and question marks. Tight end. We all know. Evan Ingram, Kyle Rudolph, Kenny Smith. Is Evan Ingram going to be consistent? And if he's not, well, who's next? Is Kyle Rudolph going to stay healthy? Questions there. Receivers, okay, you got some good guys, but is Kenny Golladay and Daniel Jones going to be able to connect? If Daniel Jones doesn't have a good year, well, that's going to directly affect the receivers. And running backs, can Saquon Barkley actually stay healthy? Because when he is, if everything goes right for the Giants, their offense can be solid. But if anything would to go wrong, their offense could completely slide off. And you can say that about most teams. But let's be honest here. If the Chiefs had a minor injury to their offensive line, it's not going to completely derail their season. For the Giants, if they get injuries on their offensive line, well, oh no, there's issues because their offensive line much weaker, not as much depth. Same thing if the Jets or the Chiefs would to suffer a big blow on the receiving core. Well, they have good depth. If Kenny Golladay would to go down this season, the Giants' receiving core is after that. Sterling Shepard is injury prone. Darius Lane has shown moments, but Kenny could do it consistently. And Kadarius Toney, you don't know nothing about. Guy's been up and down throughout training camp. He's been He's a rookie. Kenny, what is he gonna do? So there's a lot of questions there. But then you go to the defense and you look at the defensive line. And you're like, wow, that's a really good defensive line. Secondary is amazing. Their secondary is so good. And then you go to the linebackers and they're just as good. And even if you want to get into special teams, they got a very reliable kicker in Graham Gano. So the only issue with the Giants is their defense. Or their offense, rather. Their offense. So many holes, so many questions. Their defense, on the other hand, rock solid. No need to worry about their defense. Their defense is the strength. And the Jets, it's in a way, it's a little bit of the opposite. I believe in this Jets defense. The offense, there's definitely questions. New quarterback, new offensive system, right? I think the Jets secondary, for the Jets, I think it's certain positions. Cornerbacks, big question mark. But I wouldn't say the Jets, offense or defense as a whole is a big question mark. I would say their cornerback's a big question mark. Tight end's a big question mark. Their defense line isn't. I wouldn't say their linebackers are. I would say the receivers, I think who's starting, who's not, is definitely interesting. Is Elijah Moore going to be out there week 1? Is Jamison Crowder going to be out there? How do they use Crowder? Who's going to be the number one? Okay, who's going to start at running back? Who's going to be out there for the first snap of the season? That's another question. So there's definitely some more questions there as well. There's questions all over. But you look at the Giants' offense and you're like, And you look at their defense and you're like, wow, really good defense. So this season all depends on what the Giants' offense does. Because their defense is going to do the job. It's a matter of can their offense step up and make plays. Or their offense can step up and make plays. That is the big question. And we'll find that out very shortly. Now, in all fairness to the Giants, they get Barkley back. So they get a guy who, when healthy, is a very good player. And that's that. So, we'll see. But the Jets and Giants 53-man rosters revealed. Not crazy things surprising. Like I said, the only thing surprising with me is the Jets tight end thing. I don't know what the thought process is behind it, but we'll see how it goes. Like I said, it's not that I don't trust Tyler Kroft. It's not that I don't think he's going to do or not. It's not that I don't think he's going to do good. Not saying Tyler Kroft's going to turn into Travis Kelce, but it's not that I think that Tyler Kroft's going to be terrible and do nothing. It's just what if Tyler Kroft goes down? What's next? Do you just throw a guy in from the practice squad? I would rather there be more depth there than just one guy on the active roster at tight end. You get what I'm saying? And maybe now with Chris Herndon trade, it opens up a spot maybe now where you bring up someone else. I don't know. I would just like more depth there. I would also really enjoy if Zach Ertz is at tight end for the first game of the season. That would be awesome. But I might be fantasizing a little too much there. Because if the Jets would have traded for Ertz, I think they probably would have already done it already. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they get it done. Because the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take for him to see game action because he's going to have to learn the playbook and everything like that. But we'll see. So that's the 53-man roster for both the Jets and the Giants. Alrighty, so let's get to the update here and finish off the podcast here today. As I mentioned, college football is starting up tomorrow, and then there's games all throughout the weekend. You got some really big games throughout the weekend. Miami, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. There's a good game. Penn State, Wisconsin's a good top 25 matchup in the Big Ten. That's a big game earlier in the year. Iowa, Indiana. There's actually a lot of really big Big Ten games early in the season that late in the year could mean a lot in terms of standings and placement for rankings and Big Ten championship. Penn State, Wisconsin, that's big. Iowa, Indiana, that's big. There's not major other games. Ohio State, Minnesota, I wouldn't say that's massive, but still, Ohio State wanting to get on the right foot early, without Justin Fields. He's obviously in the NFL now, wanting to start off the season strong. There are maybe some other games. Michigan State, a lot of people believe might have a chance this season to definitely improve. We'll see. They play Northwestern, a team who had a good year last year. We'll see if they can do it. Let's see. There's some other games as well. Michigan's an interesting one. Michigan's not even ranked. That program went from being some of the best of best to kind of back down to kind of average. Like, it's average now. It's not bad, but it's like, eh. There's definitely some good college football games on, especially in the SEC. You got Miami, Alabama, which is going to be easy, and then you got Georgia, Clemson. Clemson with their new quarterback in DJ Lualaga. Without Lawrence for the first time in 2 years, let's see how they respond. Definitely some good games over the weekend. But either way, that's what I got for that. Let's get into fantasy or the baseball games yesterday and then fantasy baseball as well. Mariners won, Dodgers won, Brewers won, Padres won, Cubs won, Rangers won, White Sox won, Indians won, Phillies won, Rays won, A's won, Orioles won, and the Mets won the first game 6-5, and they won the second game 3-1, so the Mets moved to 65 and 67 on the season. Yankees lost yesterday as well, 6-4, so the Yankees moved to 76 and 56 on the season. As for today, we got the Reds, Cardinals. I'll give Reds the win. Rockies, Rangers, give Rockies the win. Padres, Diamondbacks, give Padres the win. Astros, Cheaters, Mariners, give Cheaters the win. Reds, Cardinals, give Reds the win. Phillies, Nationals, I will give Phillies the win. Blue Jays, Orioles, give Blue Jays the win. A's, Tigers, give A's the win. Red Sox, Rays, I'll give Red Sox the win. Twins, Cubs, give Twins the win. Royals, Indians, I'll give Royals the win. White Sox, Pirates, give White Sox the win. Giants, Brewers, give Giants the win. And Dodgers, Braves, give Dodgers the win. Mets and Yankees both play today as well. Or rather, okay, so let's get into the Yankees game here. Or rather, the Mets play tomorrow. So the Mets will play tomorrow. I was looking at the wrong date. So Mets play tomorrow against the Marlins, and the Yankees play today. All right, so Yankees come into today's game 76 and 56. Angels come in this game 66 and 67. This game comes on today, 7:07 p.m. Eastern Time on MLB Network. Yankees got Garrett Cole on the mound. He's 13-6 with a 2.80 ERA. And the Angels got Naughton on the mound. He's 0-0 with a 1.69 ERA. The over-under for this game is set at 8.5. 82% of people think the Yankees will win. Cole's on the mound. Give me the Yankees. Then we'll get on over to fantasy baseball. As for fantasy baseball, I'm currently losing 98-52. So that's not going great. I got to put Whit Merrifield back in today. I'll probably put him in. I will probably put Whit Merrifield in over Aviso. Do I put him in over Aviso Garcia? He's been doing decent. Yeah, I'm going to take Aviso Garcia. I also got to put Matt Olson back in. So I'll put that there. And then I'll probably put Cronenworth right here. So, all right. So this is the lineup. Will Smith, Matt Olson, Gene Segura, Alex Bregman, Marcus Semien, Carlos Correa, Jake Cronenworth, Christian Yelich, Whit Merrifield, Austin Meadows, Dylan Carlson, A.J. Pollock, and Luke Voigt, assuming Voigt plays today. As for pitching, I got Garrett Cole and James Caprillion on the mound today. So I'm going to look to pick up one more pitcher. I don't know who to pick up yet. I'm trying to figure that out. Odorizzi plays against... Odorizzi's been actually better recently, but he's not overall in the season been good. I would bring in Miles Mikolas, but he's not very good either. There's nobody pitching good against like a free agent pitcher going up against a bad team. It's the best when you get a free agent pitcher going up against a bad team. That's the best. Because... All right. Anyway, so that's my lineup for fantasy baseball. I'm currently losing right now, but gotta hope for a comeback. Yankees on tonight against the Angels. I hope for a win tonight. Trying to snap the little 4-game skid that they're on. And, then you head back home. You leave the West Coast, head back home and play the Orioles. And then you get some other easy matchups. So that's the thing. Everybody could panic and do all this stuff about a 4-game losing streak. But look at the upcoming schedule. They're going back home. If they find a way to win today, this could be another win streak because you have the Orioles for 3. And the Orioles are terrible. And I know that we lost to the Orioles and stuff, but, the Orioles are an awful baseball team. Then you have the Texas Rangers and the Mets and all those. The Orioles are a terrible baseball team. So we'll see how it all goes. But that'll do it. With all that being said, that'll do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. As always, I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.